In this video, we're going to take a look at the different ways that you can combine data frames with the Pandas library. So first we're going to understand how indexing works, and then we're going to look at how we can combine data frames along the columns and also the rows. If you find this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to begin by importing NumPy and Pandas into our workbook as NP and PD. We're going to read in some data to our workbook using the readCSV method from Pandas. I'll leave a link to the files in GitHub in the description below for you to follow along with. I'll first create a company data frame reading in the company CSV file. I'll set the index for our data frame to use the symbol column, and then returning our data frame, we can see it contains just 3 columns: the company symbol, which is our index, the company name, and also the sector which they operate within. We can see there are 505 rows to our data. We also have a second CSV file that we will want to read into our workbook, and this contains the financial data for these companies. I will read the CSV into data frame financial df1 and also set the index to the symbol column. If I return the data frame, we can see the columns of our CSV contain the price, dividend yield, PE ratios, and more details on the earnings. We do also note that there are just 248 rows, whereas we have 505 in our company CSV file. This is because the financial data only contains half of the data, and that's kind of done on purpose for the purposes of this video. So I'm going to read in a third CSV file, financials_2, into a data frame financial df_2. And again, we will set the index to the symbol column. And we can see this data frame contains 257 rows, the same columns for price, dividend yield, and also the earnings. So we have our company data of 505 rows, then the 2 financial data frames that contain financial data for half of the companies each. Now we're going to look at how we can combine this data into a single data frame with Pandas. So to begin, I will combine our company data frame with the first financial data frame. We can do this using the concat method from Pandas. So concat will simply merge the 2 data frames together. And as we have already set the index for both of these data frames to that symbol column, Pandas will already know which column to be combining the data frames upon. So I will write pd.concat, and then we're going to pass in an array of our data frames to be combined. So that will be the company df and the financial df1. And then I'm also going to specify the axis as equal to 1. So axis of 1 is telling Pandas to combine the data frames on the columns. So we're actually placing these 2 data frames side by side, and we're not just adding one on top of the other, sort of in a sandwich. So from the output, we can see the first 5 rows have financial data added to them, whereas the last 5 rows contain this NaN value, which stands for not a number. And this is kind of Pandas' way of telling us that there's no financial data in our financial data frame that corresponds to the symbol in our company's data frame. As only half the data is contained in our financial data frame 1, I would therefore expect the other half to be contained in our financial data frame 2. So I'll perform the same sort of concatenation between the company data frame and financial data frame 2 upon the same axis of columns, and then we can check out our result. So we can see that the first 5 rows have NaN for the financial information, whereas it is populated for the companies at the bottom 5. Now, if I want to combine these data frames, so all the financial data is present for all companies, I'll need to combine the 2 financial data frames we have together before then concatenating them on our company's data frame. I'll create a new data frame called combined_df, which is a concatenation of our financial df1 and financial df2. Now the axis for this combination will be 0, as we're simply merging the 2 rows together. I'm not combining them on the columns, but on the rows. If I return combined df, we can see 505 rows of financial data. If I run combined_df.info, we can see the number of values we have for each field, their type, and also the memory usage. So this can be quite handy for us to know. Lastly, what I'm going to do is concatenate the data with our company's information. We can perform a concatenation of the combined DF with our company DF using the axis of 1 to ensure we're merging on the columns. So this will now show us a data frame that contains all the company and financial data in a single data frame. So one thing to note is that the order we pass in the data frames to the concatenation will determine the order they're displayed in the data frame. So I will simply swap the combined and company DF in the array, so we have our company name and sector shown towards the left of our data frame. So that concludes this video on the simple ways that we can combine data frames using the Pandas library.